My parents said it again tonight. You're too small to handle real responsibilities. They didn't even whisper it. They threw it across the dinner table like a hammer, and it landed on me just like they wanted. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. I sat there, quiet, because what was the point? My dad's voice was sharp, like he wanted to break something in me. My mom didn't even bother hiding her smirk. She added, "You've always been delicate, Avery. Fragile. You don't need to carry heavy burdens. It's not who you are. Do you know what it feels like to have the people who raised you call you weak? Not once, not twice, but your whole life." I gripped my wine glass so tightly I thought it would shatter. But I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I let their words hang in the air because I knew something they didn't. The clock was ticking. And midnight was coming. Noah, my husband, my partner in everything, squeezed my hand under the table. He didn't have to say anything. His eyes told me what I already knew. Hold steady. Avery, you've already won. They had no idea that the small, fragile daughter they mocked was about to close the biggest tech merger of the year. At 12:07 a.m., while the city slept, every major business outlet broke the headline, Helix Link and North Peak Systems merge, billion-dollar deal signed by Avery Lane and Noah Reed. I just sat there in our penthouse living room, staring at the screen, my heart racing, my phone buzzing like it was about to explode. They told me I was too small. And yet here I was, signing something so massive it would ripple across the entire tech world. That was the moment I realized. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer you can give. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Headlines, investor calls, congratulatory messages from people who once ghosted me. My inbox was a wildfire, but none of it rattled me the way the knock at the door did. It was just after 9 a.m. Noah was in the kitchen, pouring coffee. I was still in my robe, hair tied back, scrolling through one article after another that had my name bolded in headlines. Then, 3 sharp knocks. I looked at Noah. He didn't even need to check the security camera. He already knew. His jaw tightened as he set his mug down. "It's them," he said flatly. I walked to the door anyway. My stomach twisted when I peeked through the frosted glass. There they were, my parents. Richard and Diane Lane, standing on the polished concrete entryway, like actors who had rehearsed their lines all night. My dad was holding a bouquet of lilies. My mom was dressed as if she was heading to a luncheon, not to see the daughter she'd called fragile less than 24 hours earlier. Noah stepped behind me, his hand firm on the door handle. "You don't have to do this," he murmured. But I pressed my palm to the glass just to steady myself. My mother leaned in, trying to peer past the door. Her voice carried, muffled but clear enough. "Avery, sweetheart, we're so proud of you. We misjudged you. Can we come in? We just want to talk." The way she said proud nearly made me laugh. Because it wasn't pride, it was desperation. Then my father's voice cut in. His tone wasn't sweet, wasn't apologetic. It was commanding, as if he still thought he had power over me. "Emily." He used my childhood nickname, the one that always made me feel smaller. "Open the door. Let us in. We need to celebrate. Celebrate." That was the word he chose. Not apologize, not listen. Celebrate. I felt Noah's grip tighten on the handle, not to open it, but to make sure it stayed shut. He looked at me, waiting for my call. His eyes were calm, steady, reminding me that this choice wasn't about them. It was about me. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the little girl begging for their approval. I was the woman who had signed a billion-dollar deal. I took a breath, my voice steady. "Noah, keep the door closed." Through the glass, I watched my father's expression shift. His jaw twitched. He wasn't used to being denied. He spoke louder now, trying to make his voice sound warm but failing. "Avery, listen. We were wrong. You've proven yourself. You're not small. You're not fragile. you've shown us you can handle real responsibilities. So, let's put everything behind us. We're family. Family. The word rolled around in my head like a cruel joke. Where was family when I was burning myself out, coding for 18 hours a day, eating instant noodles because every cent went into Helix Link? Where was family when I called home just to hear encouragement, and instead got told I should marry rich instead of trying to build something myself? They weren't here. They never were. And now, because the headlines screamed my name, they suddenly remembered they had a daughter. I turned to Noah. My throat was tight, but my decision was clear. They don't get to walk in now. Not after everything. He nodded once, and without hesitation, he held the door firmly shut. My mother's smile faltered. She tried again, her voice higher now, almost desperate. Avery, please. We're sorry. We just didn't know. But now we see who you are. We're proud of you. We want to be part of your life again. Her words should have felt like balm. Instead, they stung worse than the insults. Because it wasn't real. It was convenience. I pressed my forehead against the door for just a moment and whispered, more to myself than to them. You only see me now because the world does. Then I raised my voice. Calm. Cold. Final. Go home. You told me I was too small. You told me I couldn't handle real responsibilities. You don't get to rewrite that today. Not with flowers. My dad stiffened, his face hardening behind the glass. For the first time, he looked powerless. My mom tugged his sleeve, but he resisted for a second before finally stepping back. Noah and I stood there, silent as they walked away, my mom glancing back one last time, my dad refusing to turn around. The flowers slipped from his grip and hit the sidewalk, petals scattering. I closed my eyes. For years, I thought the only way I'd ever feel whole was if they finally said, "We're proud of you." But standing there, watching them walk away while Noah held me steady, I realized something different. I didn't need their pride. I had my own, and for the first time in my life, that was enough. I thought ignoring them at the door would be the end of it. I was wrong. By noon, I had 3 missed calls, 4 voicemails, and a dozen texts. My mom's tone shifted in every message, sweet, pleading, guilt-tripping. My dad's words were shorter, colder, but no less desperate. We need to talk. This isn't how families act. You owe us that much. Owe them? That word gnawed at me, because that's how it always was with them. I owed them gratitude, respect, obedience, even when what they gave me in return was doubt and humiliation. By evening, I knew I couldn't avoid them forever. Not because I needed them, but because for once, I wanted to look them in the eye as the woman they had said I'd never be. Noah wasn't thrilled when I told him. He leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, his dark eyes steady on mine. Avery, you don't need to explain yourself to them. You don't owe them a performance. I know, I said softly, but I need to say it. Not for them. For me? He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Then I'll be right there with you. We met them the next night in a downtown restaurant. The kind of place my parents loved. White tablecloths, chandeliers, quiet enough that whispered judgments carried across the room. They were already seated when we arrived. My mom smiled like she'd been practicing in the mirror, but her eyes flicked nervously to my dad. He sat stiff, jaw locked, the bouquet of charm nowhere in sight. Avery, my mom breathed, rising just enough to air-kiss my cheek. You look radiant. Thank you, I said flatly, sliding into the seat across from them. Noah sat beside me, his presence solid, anchoring. The silence stretched until my dad finally broke it. So, the merger. He said it like the word tasted bitter. You pulled it off. Yes, I said, my tone even. We did. He leaned back, arms crossing. I'll admit, I didn't think you had it in you. There it was. No apology, no ownership. Just a reluctant concession. I met his stare. You didn't think I had it in me because you never bothered to see me? You only saw the version of me you decided was real. And every time I tried to prove otherwise, you laughed. My mom tried to smooth it over. Honey, we just worried. We didn't want you hurt if it all failed. Parents, I cut her off. My voice was sharper than I expected. No, don't wrap it in concern. You didn't protect me. You crushed me. You called me fragile, delicate, small, like I was some glass ornament. Do you know how many nights I worked until sunrise? How many times I broke down wondering if you were right? And every single time I got back up. It wasn't because of you. It was despite you. The table went still. My mom's face paled. My dad's lips pressed thin. Noah's hand found mine under the table, a quiet squeeze. I leaned forward, my voice lower now, but stronger. When you told me I couldn't handle responsibility, I carried the weight anyway. When you said I couldn't lead, I built a team that believed in me. When you said I wasn't enough, I proved I was more than you ever gave me credit for. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The clinking of cutlery from other tables filled the silence. Finally, my father cleared his throat. You've made your point. But understand something, Avery. Family is family. We want to move forward. We can't erase what was said, but we can. Start again, I almost laughed. Start again. The words sounded so clean, so simple, like everything could be wiped away with one dinner and a forced smile. No, I said quietly. We don't get to just start again. You don't get to rewrite history because now it's convenient. You don't get to show up with flowers after the headlines hit and act like you've been in my corner all along. You made your choice when you decided I was too small. And I've made mine now. I don't need your approval. I never did. I just needed to realize it. My mom's eyes filled, but not with understanding, with fear. Fear of being left out of the life I had built. Avery, please. Don't shut us out. We're your parents. We love you. I shook my head. You loved the version of me that needed you, the one who would shrink to fit inside your expectations. That version doesn't exist anymore. I stood up. Noah rose beside me, his hand warm against my back. My dad stayed seated, but his voice followed, hard and bitter. Don't come running back when you realize family matters more than business. I turned, my voice calm but cutting. You're right. Family matters. That's why I'm choosing mine. Noah, my team, the people who believed in me when you didn't. That's my family now. And with that, I walked out. The cool night air hit me like a release. For years I had carried the weight of their words, craving their approval like oxygen. But standing there under the streetlights, Noah's hand in mine, I realized I was breathing easier without it. They could keep their lilies, their empty apologies, their shifting tones. I had something stronger, the knowledge that I had built my life on my own terms. And I didn't need them to hold the door open anymore, because now I was the one holding it shut. I thought walking out of that restaurant would be the last time I'd see them. But life has a way of testing your resolve right when you think you're done. 2 weeks later, on a Saturday morning, I heard another knock at the door. Not the firm, commanding rhythm my father used. This one was slower, almost hesitant. I hesitated too, heart pounding as I checked the camera feed. It was them again. My mother clutched an envelope. My father stood stiff beside her, his face a storm barely held together. Noah was at the dining table, reviewing quarterly projections. He looked up, saw the screen, and immediately set his pen down. Avery, do you want me to? I shook my head. No, I'll handle it. He didn't argue. He just leaned back in his chair, eyes locked on me, ready if I needed him. I opened the door halfway this time, but I didn't invite them in. My mother's smile was shaky. Sweetheart, she said softly, holding out the envelope. We wrote you a letter. Things we should have said years ago. Her voice cracked, and for a moment, the little girl inside me ached to believe her. But then my father spoke. You've made it clear you don't need us, he said gruffly. But this, he gestured to the envelope. This doesn't change the fact that we're family. That blood is blood. There it was again. That same weaponized word. Family. I looked at the envelope but didn't reach for it. Do you know what family really means? I asked quietly. It's not just blood. It's not just a last name. It's who shows up when you're broken. Who believes in you when no one else does. By that definition, You stopped being family a long time ago. My mom's eyes brimmed with tears. Avery, we're trying— No. I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. You're not trying for me. You're trying for yourselves. You see success now, so suddenly I'm worth claiming. But where were you when I was begging for encouragement? Where were you when you laughed at me for dreaming too big? You don't get to erase those years with flowers and envelopes. The silence stretched. My dad's jaw tightened, his pride fighting to stay intact. My mom finally lowered the envelope, her shoulders trembling. I took a step forward, my tone steady. I don't hate you. I don't even wish you harm, but I won't let you back into my life on your terms. My boundaries aren't negotiable, and if you can't respect that, then this is where our story ends. For the first time, my father had nothing to say. He just looked at me, his eyes a mix of regret and stubbornness, then turned away. My mother lingered a second longer, her lips parting like she wanted to beg one more time, but she didn't. They walked down the path slowly, the envelope still in her hands. I closed the door. This time there was no shaking in my chest. No longing. Just relief. Noah stood and walked over, wrapping his arms around me. You did it, he whispered. You finally said everything you needed to say. I leaned into him, letting the weight fall off my shoulders. I didn't do it for them, I said. I did it for me, he smiled, pressing a kiss to my temple. Exactly. And that's why it matters. That night, as the city lights blinked through our windows, I sat on the balcony with my laptop open. Another headline had just dropped. Carter-Reed merger sparks new era in tech industry, led by Avery Lane. I stared at my name glowing on the screen. Not their name, mine. And for the first time in my life, I didn't need anyone else to tell me I was enough. I already knew.
I strode into the building with a sense of trepidation and purpose, my heart racing as I adjusted the janitor's uniform I'd borrowed. This wasn't just any building. It was my family's company, the empire my father had spent his life building. But I wasn't here as a privileged daughter. Today, I was just another faceless worker. The plan was simple: blend in, observe, and uncover the truth about how our employees were being treated. The receptionist barely glanced at me as I walked in. Maintenance, she asked dismissively. I nodded, keeping my head down. Yes, ma'am. Break room needs cleaning, she snapped, not even bothering with pleasantries. It was my first taste of the disdain many employees faced. My father had always preached about treating workers with respect, but I was about to discover how far the reality was from his words. The break room reeked of stale coffee and resentment. Conversation stopped as I entered, all eyes turning to the new janitor. One of the employees, a man in his mid-30s with a condescending smirk, muttered loud enough for everyone to hear, "Guess they'll let anyone in here these days." I bit my tongue, reminding myself of my mission. As I wiped down the counters, I listened carefully to their conversations. Complaints about management, long hours, and unfair treatment echoed through the room. Later that day, I encountered Ava, the HR manager. She was supposed to be the bridge between employees and upper management, but her attitude told a different story. "Hey, janitor," she called out. "You missed a spot." Her tone dripped with superiority as she pointed to a nearly invisible smudge on the floor. I clenched my fists, forcing a smile. "Of course, ma'am. Right away." She scoffed and walked off, leaving me seething. If only she knew who I really was. Over the next few days, I witnessed things that left me furious. Employees were overworked, underappreciated, and treated like disposable cogs in a machine. Supervisors barked orders without a shred of respect, and Ava, the HR manager, seemed to take pleasure in belittling her staff. One incident stood out. A young intern named Lily was reduced to tears after a supervisor berated her for a minor mistake. "If you can't handle the pressure, maybe this isn't the place for you," he sneered. I stepped in, unable to hold back. "That's enough," I said firmly. He glared at me. "Stay out of it, janitor. This doesn't concern you." But it did concern me. These were my employees, and I wasn't going to let this slide. That evening, I found Lily in the break room, still wiping away tears. I sat down beside her, offering her a tissue. "Thanks," she whispered. "You don't deserve to be treated like that," I said softly. "No one does." She gave me a sad smile. "It's just how things are here. You get used to it." But I didn't want anyone to get used to it. After 2 weeks of blending in, I had seen enough. The employees weren't the problem, it was the toxic management culture. Ava and her team of supervisors had created an environment of fear and hostility. It was time to take action. The day of reckoning was drawing closer, but I knew I couldn't rush things. I started by building trust with a few employees who seemed genuinely kind but were stuck in the toxic environment. One of them was an older janitor named Mr. Harris. He had worked for the company for over 20 years and had seen the gradual decline in morale. "They used to treat us like family," he said one evening as we cleaned the lobby together. "Now, it's all about squeezing us for every penny." His words stung because they mirrored my own observations. "Things will change," I promised him, though I kept my tone neutral. He gave me a sad smile. "I've heard that before, kid. But I hope you're right." My resolve was tested when I saw Ava berating a young man named Carlos in front of everyone. He had accidentally spilled coffee on her desk while delivering a report. "You're a complete idiot," she snapped. "Do you know how much this desk costs? More than your pathetic salary, that's for sure." Carlos stood there, his face turning red with embarrassment. I couldn't hold back anymore. "Enough," I said firmly, stepping forward. Ava spun around, her eyes narrowing. "What did you just say?" "You don't have the right to speak to him like that," I replied, my voice calm but unyielding. "Everyone makes mistakes." Her face twisted in anger. "You're a janitor. Know your place." I didn't respond, but I made a mental note that Ava's reign of terror would soon come to an end. I began taking small steps to empower the employees. I started anonymously, leaving encouraging notes in the break room and slipping small gifts into lockers, things like coffee vouchers or thank you cards. At first, people were skeptical. "What's the catch?" someone asked. "There is no catch," I said quietly one day, overhearing their doubts. "Sometimes kindness doesn't need a reason." The atmosphere began to shift, albeit slightly. People started smiling more, and there was a spark of hope that hadn't been there before. I needed allies to take down Ava and the toxic supervisors. I carefully observed which employees had influence among their peers. One of them was Maria, a no-nonsense team leader who always stood up for her team, even when it put her at odds with management. I approached her during her lunch break, carefully choosing my words. "Maria, I admire the way you stand up for people here." She raised an eyebrow. "What's your angle?" "No angle," I replied. "I just think this place could be better, and I want to help." She studied me for a moment before nodding. "All right, janitor. Let's see what you've got." With Maria's help, we orchestrated a small but impactful act of defiance. One of the supervisors, Greg, had been notorious for making employees stay late without pay. Maria and I gathered evidence and anonymously reported him to HR. To my surprise, Ava tried to cover for Greg, dismissing the complaints as exaggerations. That's when I decided to take things to the next level. I secretly recorded Ava berating an employee and forwarded the video to the company's ethics hotline. The video went viral internally, and the employees finally had proof of her behavior. The backlash was immediate. Ava was furious, but she had no idea who was behind the leak. As the days passed, word of the anonymous whistleblower spread like wildfire. I watched as employees who had once been disheartened began to find their voices. Maria, in particular, became a beacon of hope. She started organizing after-hours meetings in secret, where employees shared their grievances and brainstormed ways to push back against the toxic management. One night, Maria invited me to one of these gatherings. The break room felt alive for the first time in years as people spoke openly. "This place has drained us for too long," one employee said, slamming his fist on the table. "It's time we demand change." I listened intently, my heart swelling with pride and sadness. These people had endured so much, and yet they still found the strength to fight back. After everyone had spoken, Maria turned to me. "You've been quiet, janitor. What do you think?" I hesitated, knowing I couldn't reveal my identity just yet. "I think you're all braver than you realize," I said. "And I think change is closer than you think." The next morning, I decided to take a risk. I left a detailed letter outlining Ava's abuses on the desk of the company's compliance officer. The letter included dates, names, and specific incidents, enough to start a formal investigation. But I knew Ava wouldn't go down without a fight. Sure enough, later that day, she stormed into the break room, her face a mask of fury. "Listen up, everyone," she barked. "Whoever's been spreading lies about me better come forward now, or there will be consequences." Her threat hung in the air like a storm cloud. I glanced around, noticing the fear in my colleagues' eyes. But no one spoke up. Ava's grip on this company was slipping, and she knew it. Ava began targeting employees she suspected of being behind the rebellion. Maria was one of the first to be called into her office. When Maria returned, her face was pale, and her hands were shaking. "She threatened to fire me," Maria whispered to me later. "Said if I didn't tell her who's been spreading rumors, I'd be out of a job." I placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Don't let her scare you. She's losing control, and she knows it." Maria nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Ava's reign of terror wasn't over yet. Despite Ava's intimidation tactics, the employees began to band together. Maria and I worked late into the night, drafting a formal complaint that dozens of employees signed. The document was a damning indictment of Ava's leadership, detailing everything from verbal abuse to unethical business practices. Once it was finalized, we submitted it directly to the board of directors, bypassing Ava entirely. It was a risky move, but we were running out of options. When Ava found out about the complaint, she went on the warpath. She called an emergency meeting, dragging employees into her office one by one. Her goal was clear: to root out the leaders of the rebellion and crush them. But she underestimated the employees' resolve. For the first time, they refused to back down. "I'm not afraid of you anymore," Carlos told her during his meeting. "You can fire me if you want, but you can't silence me." His bravery inspired others to stand up as well. Ava's power was crumbling, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. The board of directors couldn't ignore the growing unrest within the company. They called a meeting to address the complaints, and Ava was forced to defend herself. I managed to sneak into the meeting as a janitor, blending into the background as Ava tried to spin the situation in her favor. "These accusations are baseless," she claimed. "It's just a few disgruntled employees trying to stir up trouble." But the board wasn't convinced. They announced that an independent investigation would be conducted, and Ava's authority was temporarily suspended. It was a small victory, but it was enough to give the employees hope. As the investigation unfolded, more and more evidence of Ava's misconduct came to light. Employees who had been too afraid to speak up before began sharing their stories, and the picture that emerged was damning. Ava tried to discredit the witnesses, but her lies only made her look worse. The board had no choice but to place her on indefinite leave while they decided her fate. With Ava out of the picture, I knew it was time to reveal my true identity. I called an all-hands meeting, inviting every employee to attend. When I stepped onto the stage, wearing a suit instead of my janitor's uniform, the room erupted in whispers. "My name is Isabella Carter," I announced, "and I'm here to set things right." The shock on their faces was priceless. For the first time, they realized that the janitor they had ignored or dismissed was actually the daughter of the company's founder. For a moment, the room was dead silent. Then the murmurs started. Some employees looked shocked. Others seemed embarrassed, no doubt recalling the times they had dismissed me or treated me poorly. Maria was the first to step forward. You're Mr. Carter's daughters?" I nodded.
"Yes."
"I've spent the last few weeks working alongside you to see firsthand what this company has become. And let me tell you, what I've seen has left me both heartbroken and furious." A few heads dropped, and I could sense the mixture of guilt and relief in the room. "I came here disguised as a janitor because I wanted the truth. I needed to know how you were being treated, and now I do. But I promise you this: things are going to change." After the meeting, I headed straight for Ava's office. She had been temporarily suspended, but I knew she was still lurking around, trying to salvage her reputation. When I entered, She looked up, her expression twisting into a sneer. Ah, the princess finally reveals herself. Come to gloats. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. I came to let you know that your reign is over. The board has all the evidence they need to remove you permanently. You won't hurt anyone here again. Ava leaned back in her chair, smirking. You think you've won? These people don't care about you. The moment things get tough, they'll turn on you, just like they did to me. Her words stung, but I refused to let her see it. The difference is, I'm not like you. I'm here to rebuild what you tried to destroy. The next few weeks were some of the most challenging of my life. With Ava officially removed from her position, I stepped in as interim CEO. My first priority was to rebuild trust with the employees, and that meant listening to their concerns and acting on them. I held daily meetings, inviting employees to share their experiences and suggestions for improvement. At first, only a few people showed up, but as word spread that I was genuinely interested in their input, more and more employees began attending. One of the most emotional moments came when Carlos stood up and said, "I never thought someone in your position would care about people like me. Thank you for proving me wrong." As I delved deeper into the company's operations, I discovered just how much damage Ava and her team had done. Employees were owed thousands of dollars in unpaid overtime, safety protocols had been ignored, and morale was at an all-time low. I immediately implemented a series of changes. Employees were compensated for their unpaid overtime. A new HR team was brought in to ensure fair treatment for everyone. An anonymous feedback system was introduced, giving employees a safe way to report issues. The changes didn't happen overnight, but slowly, I began to see a shift in the company's culture. One of my favorite moments came during an employee appreciation event I organized. For years, the hardworking people behind the scenes had gone unnoticed, but now it was their time to shine. Mr. Harris, the janitor who had shown me kindness when I first started, was among those honored. When I called his name, he looked genuinely surprised. "Mr. Harris, your dedication and hard work have not gone unnoticed," I said. "Thank you for everything you've done for this company." He wiped away a tear as the room erupted into applause. Not everyone was happy about the changes. A small group of supervisors who had benefited from Ava's toxic policies began pushing back, spreading rumors, and trying to undermine my authority. One day, I caught two of them whispering in the hallway. "She thinks she can fix everything," one of them sneered. "Let's see how long she lasts." I confronted them directly. "If you have something to say it to my face," I said, my voice steady. They looked startled, but I didn't back down. "This company is moving forward. If you can't handle that, you're welcome to leave." While I was making progress professionally, the emotional toll of the past few weeks was beginning to weigh on me. Late one night, as I sat alone in my office, I found myself questioning if I was strong enough to keep going. My father's portrait hung on the wall behind me, his eyes seeming to offer encouragement. "You always said this company was about people, Dad," I whispered. "I hope I'm making you proud." To symbolize the company's new beginning, I decided to renovate the break room, a space that had once been a source of dread for employees. The walls were repainted, new furniture was brought in, and a small library of books and games was added. When the renovations were complete, I gathered the employees for the unveiling. "This is more than just a break room," I said. "It's a reminder that this company values you. You are the heart and soul of everything we do." The applause that followed was deafening. As the months went by, the company began to thrive. Productivity soared, not because of fear or intimidation, but because employees felt valued and supported. One day, Maria approached me with a smile. "You've done it, Isabella. You've brought this company back to life." I shook my head. "We did it. None of this would have been possible without all of you." The journey had been long and challenging, but as I looked out over the crowd of smiling employees at our annual celebration, I knew it had all been worth it. This company was no longer a place of fear and despair. It was a place of hope, respect, and opportunity, a true reflection of my father's vision. As I stepped down from the stage, Carlos approached me. "You changed my life," he said. I smiled. "No, Carlos. You changed mine."
The clink of silverware against porcelain had been the only sound for a few minutes, until Mom set her fork down with a sharp clink that made me glance up. Her eyes locked on me across the long oak table, her lips curling like she'd been waiting all afternoon for the moment. "At some point, Emily," she said, her voice just loud enough for the other tables nearby to hear, "you're going to have to accept reality. You'll never be successful. Stop dreaming." Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos. And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us, what would you do in this situation? Be honest. Tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The words hung in the air, slicing through the hum of the crowded restaurant. I felt heat creep up my neck, but I didn't speak. Across from me, my sister smirked into her wine glass, clearly enjoying the public humiliation. Dad didn't even look up from his steak. The chatter at our table stilled. My cousins looked down at their plates. The waiter, who'd been refilling water at the table beside us, slowed slightly, pretending not to hear but clearly listening. I gripped my napkin under the table so tightly the edges bit into my palms. "Pass the bread," I said calmly, forcing my voice to stay steady, my expression unreadable. If she wanted a scene, she wouldn't get one. "Bread?" Mom laughed, tilting her head. "That's the problem with you. You think small. Bread? Crumbs? You'll be 40 still talking about the next big thing you might do." "Mom," my brother Mark muttered, shifting in his seat. She ignored him, leaning back in her chair, her bracelets jingling. "You can't even hold a stable job, Emily. You bounce from idea to idea like life's some kind of game. It's embarrassing." I stayed still, swallowing down the 100 comebacks clawing at my throat. My boyfriend Ryan, sitting quietly beside me, placed his hand lightly on my knee under the table, a silent signal. "Wait, don't react." Around us, the low hum of other diners continued, but our table felt like a stage and I was trapped in the spotlight. My aunt reached for her wine, clearly relishing the drama. My sister caught Mom's eye and whispered, "Told you she wouldn't say anything." I broke a piece of bread, my fingers steady now. "Are you done?" I asked softly. Mom gave a dramatic sigh, waving her hand dismissively. "Eat your bread, Emily." The rest of lunch passed in thinly veiled tension. Every laugh from my family felt edged with something sharp. Ryan's jaw was tight, his blue eyes flicking from face to face like he was cataloging every insult. When the bill came, Mom snatched it before anyone else could reach. "I've got this," she announced loudly, making it clear she was the one paying. "It's important to treat family, especially the ones who can't treat themselves." Ryan didn't say a word, neither did I. We simply left when the plates were cleared, walking out into the bright Sunday afternoon. In the parking lot, he stopped beside his black SUV, turned to me, and said in a low voice, "Emily, I think I'm going to do something about today." I frowned. "Ryan, don't." He opened the passenger door for me, his expression unreadable. "You'll see." I slid in, not knowing that the next 24 hours would flip everything upside down, and that by Monday afternoon, my family would be sitting at that same table again. Only this time, Ryan would be the one holding the keys to the place. Monday morning hit with that restless heaviness you get when you didn't sleep enough but your brain wouldn't shut off anyway. I stood at the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee, staring at the steam curling upward. Ryan had left early, telling me he had meetings. He didn't elaborate, and I didn't push. But the way he kissed my forehead before leaving, it wasn't his usual goodbye. My phone buzzed with the family group chat lighting up. "Sophie, lunch at Bella Mars again next Sunday?" "Mom, works for me. That place is perfect for family gatherings." I scrolled without responding. Bella Mars, the same place she'd gutted me in front of half the dining room. The humiliation still sat in my chest like a brick. The day dragged, but around 3 p.m., Ryan called. "Are you free around 5? I frowned. "Why? What's going on?" "Just be ready," he said. "Wear something you feel confident in." When Ryan said confident, he didn't mean flashy. He meant the kind of clothes where I could walk into a room and feel unshakable. I picked a black-fitted blazer, dark jeans, and ankle boots. Simple, strong. At exactly 5, his SUV pulled up. He stepped out, looking infuriatingly composed in a navy suit, the crisp white shirt open at the collar. No tie. The way his hand found the small of my back as I slid into the car made my pulse skip.
We drove in silence for 10 minutes before I noticed the familiar brick building at the end of the block. My stomach tightened. Ryan, why are we going to Bella Mars? He just smiled faintly. You'll see. We pulled into the private parking area behind the restaurant, a space reserved for the owner and management. My confusion deepened when the head chef, Miguel, who'd worked there for years, stepped out the back door, wiping his hands on his apron. His eyes landed on Ryan and lit up. Boss, Miguel said, grinning. Everything's ready for you. Boss? Ryan gave him a nod. Appreciate it, Miguel. You'll meet Emily. She's with me. My brain was still trying to connect dots as we walked inside through the kitchen, the smell of garlic and rosemary wrapping around us. Staff glanced up from their stations, and I noticed something subtle in their expressions. Respect. We stepped into the main dining area, empty, now before the dinner rush. The soft lighting reflected off polished wine glasses. Ryan led me to our table, the same one where Mom had staged her little performance yesterday. I sat slowly, my palms brushing the linen tablecloth. Ryan? What's going on? He sat opposite me, leaning forward. Emily, you sat here yesterday and swallowed every insult, every little jab, without letting them see you break. That took more strength than they'll ever understand. I can't undo what they said, but I can make sure next time you're in this room, the power's in your hands. Before I could respond, the front door opened. 2 men in suits walked in, lawyers. One set a thick folder on the table and slid a page toward Ryan. Congratulations, one said. It's official. As of this afternoon, you own Bella Mars. I blinked. You what? Ryan's smile widened slightly. I bought the restaurant, Emily. Every table, every chair, every plate they used yesterday. It's ours now. My breath caught. I looked around the space, suddenly seeing it differently. This wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It was a stage, and the next act was mine. Tomorrow, Ryan continued, I'm inviting your entire family here for lunch. Same table. Only this time, the bill's on you. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Not the polite kind, but the kind that felt like letting go of a weight I'd been carrying for years. And somewhere deep down, I realized, tomorrow wasn't just going to be payback. It was going to be the start of something bigger than I'd ever dreamed. By the time my family walked into Bella Mars the next day, the table was already set for 8. The fresh white linens were pressed so tightly they looked untouched, the silverware perfectly aligned, and the soft glow from the overhead pendants gave everything a polished, almost theatrical air. I'd been here nearly 20 minutes already, long enough to watch the staff prepare, to feel the quiet confidence settle over me like armor. Mom spotted me immediately. Emily, she said as she removed her sunglasses, her tone already tinged with something sharp. I hope you're not here to sulk like you did yesterday. I smiled faintly, keeping my voice even. Not at all. We all sat, chairs scraping gently against the floor, the air thick with unspoken tension. Sophie flipped open her menu without even glancing at me, but I caught her expression when she noticed the small cream-colored card clipped to the front. Welcome to Bella Mars, under new ownership. New owner? She muttered, eyebrows knitting. Before I could respond, the front door swung open and Ryan walked in. He wore the same navy suit as yesterday, only today there was a quiet authority in his stride. He wasn't alone. Right behind him was Harold, the former owner, and a poised woman in a charcoal blazer, the kind of lawyer whose presence always meant business. Good afternoon, Ryan said warmly, placing a thick folder on the table beside me. His voice carried, but not in a showy way, more like someone used to people listening when he spoke. I wanted to personally welcome you to our restaurant. Mom blinked at him, confusion sharpening her features. Our? Ryan looked straight at her, unflinching. I bought Bella Mars yesterday afternoon. Every table, every chair, every plate your food is served on. It's ours now, and I invited you here so you could enjoy it. He leaned slightly forward, his tone firm but measured. Today's lunch is on the house, on one condition. Keep it respectful. Sophie gave a short, disbelieving laugh, shaking her head. You've got to be kidding. You're making this some kind of grand gesture? No, Ryan said evenly. This isn't a stunt. It's ensuring Emily is never treated here the way she was yesterday. Mom's jaw tightened, her fingers pressing into the edge of her menu. We don't need your charity. It's not charity, I cut in before Ryan could respond. My gaze locked with hers, steady. It's a reminder that you can't tear someone down in a place they own. That landed harder than I expected. Mom's lips pressed into a thin line, and Sophie shifted uncomfortably in her seat. Miguel appeared with the first course himself, a plate of burrata and warm tomato confit on charred sourdough. He placed each plate down carefully, his smile lingering on me for a moment longer. "Compliments of the kitchen," he said, then disappeared as quietly as he'd arrived. As my family took their first bites, I watched their faces shift, the initial suspicion giving way to reluctant enjoyment. And in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about payback, it was about reclaiming a space where I'd been made to feel small and turning it into a place where I couldn't be silenced. The first few minutes passed with nothing but the soft clinking of cutlery and the murmur of conversations from other tables. I could feel my mother's eyes on me, even when she pretended to focus on her plate. "So," Mom finally said, dabbing her mouth with her napkin, "now that your boyfriend bought you a fancy lunch spot, what's the plan? Sit here every day pretending you're the boss?" I set my fork down slowly. I don't have to pretend. Ryan leaned back in his chair, calm but watchful. "Emily has more say in this restaurant than you think." Sophie smirked. "Oh, right. She's probably designing the dessert menu in between all her dreams." I kept my tone steady. Better than sitting around making fun of someone who's actually trying. Mark glanced between us nervously, clearly not eager to be caught in the crossfire. "Maybe we can all—" "No," I interrupted, looking straight at Mom. "Yesterday you told me I'd never be successful, that I should stop dreaming. You wanted everyone to hear it, so now they can hear this. I'm not stopping." Mom's jaw tightened. "You've always been dramatic." Ryan slid the folder across the table toward me. "Open it." I flipped it open to find legal documents, papers with signatures, stamped seals, the works. Ownership transfer. Bella Mars was officially under Ryan's company's name, and right below his signature was mine, listed as co-owner. My breath caught. "Ryan," he smiled slightly, "told you I wanted to do something about yesterday." The table went silent. Even Sophie's smirk faltered. "This isn't charity," Ryan continued, his voice calm but cutting. "It's an investment in someone I believe in, something you should have done a long time ago." Mom's eyes flickered with something I couldn't place. Anger, disbelief, maybe even embarrassment. She picked up her wine glass, trying to mask it, but her hand wasn't as steady as she wanted it to be. I leaned forward, my voice low but clear. "You wanted me to stop dreaming? Now I'm running the place you used to humiliate me in. So if you're going to eat here, get used to the fact that I don't take orders from you anymore." Miguel appeared again with the second course, grilled halibut with fennel and lemon butter. He placed the plates down without saying a word, but the small nod he gave me said everything. The shift was subtle but undeniable. The control of the table had changed hands, and everyone knew it. The second course sat steaming in front of us, but no one touched their food right away. The air was too thick, heavy with a new kind of silence, one that didn't belong to Mom anymore. She finally broke it, swirling her wine glass in slow circles. "So, this is what you think success looks like? Hiding behind someone else's money?" I didn't flinch. "This isn't hiding. This is building. And unlike you, I don't measure success by who I can put down at a table," Sophie scoffed. "Please, you'd still be sitting in your little apartment if Ryan hadn't swooped in to play hero." Ryan's voice cut through, calm but with an edge. "Maybe you missed it, but Emily isn't just sitting here because of me. She's co-owner. That means she makes decisions, hires staff, plans events. Her name is on the documents as much as mine." Mark raised his eyebrows. "Co-owner?" Ryan nodded. "Every move this place makes from now on has her signature on it." Mom set her wine glass down, the sound sharp against the table. "You think this makes you untouchable, Emily? You think one restaurant changes who you are?" I leaned forward, my tone measured but unshakable. "It's not about being untouchable. It's about knowing that when someone tries to humiliate me, I don't have to take it anymore. Yesterday, you turned this place into a stage for my failure. Today, it's my stage, and I decide who gets a seat at the table." Miguel passed by, catching the words. Without a word, he topped off, "My water glass," a quiet show of loyalty that didn't go unnoticed. Mom's eyes narrowed, but she didn't reply right away. Instead, she picked up her fork and took a slow bite of the halibut. I watched her face as the flavor hit. She wanted to enjoy it, but pride wouldn't let her admit it out loud. Across the table, Sophie tried to change the subject. So what? You're going to just run this place now? That's the plan, I said simply. And not just run it. Improve it. We're adding community nights, training programs for culinary students, sourcing from local farms, things that matter, things that build instead of break. Ryan added, she's already mapped out the first month's changes. I've rarely seen someone more prepared. Dad, who had been mostly quiet, finally spoke. Well, I can't say I agree with how all this went down, but he gestured at his plate. This is good fish. It was as close to approval as I'd ever heard from him, and I let it stand. When dessert arrived, honey-drizzled figs over mascarpone, Mom finally looked at me directly. Her voice was cooler now, but softer too. You've made your point. I held her gaze. It was never just about making a point. It was about showing you and myself that I'm not the person you think I am. Not anymore. Ryan leaned back, satisfied. Then I'd say lunch is a success. We all sat in that strange mix of tension and quiet acceptance. My family might never give me the kind of support I wanted, but it didn't matter anymore. I had built something that couldn't be taken away with a few cutting words over lunch. And as they stood to leave, passing through the restaurant I now co-owned, I realized something. I hadn't just taken back control of the table. I'd taken back control of myself.
Don't waste your time showing her diamonds. She can't even afford the box they come in. My mother's voice sliced through the air like glass. The boutique went quiet. Even the soft instrumental music seemed to stop. I stood there in the middle of Sterling and Rowe Fine Jewelers, pretending the words didn't land. But they did. Every single one. Before we begin, drop a comment and tell us where are you from and from which city you're watching our videos? And after watching the whole video, don't forget to tell us what would you do in this situation? Be honest, tell me in the comments below. We read every comment. Let's begin. The young sales clerk blinked, unsure whether to laugh or apologize. My mother's smirk gave her the answer. You can show me the new arrivals, she said smoothly, her pearls catching the light. My daughter's just tagging along. I'd heard her tone before, the kind that dripped with fake charm while poisoning everything around it. The kind that made me feel 14 again, not 28. My throat tightened, but I forced a calm smile. Actually, I said, my voice steady, I came here for something specific. My mother gave a dry laugh. What, a catalog? I ignored her and turned to the clerk. Ava Carter. I placed an order last month. It should have arrived this week. Before the poor clerk could respond, the boutique manager appeared, sharp suit, confident stride, the kind of man who carried authority in his silence. He stopped when he saw me. His face lit up. Ms. Carter, he said warmly, we've been waiting for you. Your custom diamond line from Paris just arrived this morning. Come with me. We've set up a private room for your inspection. For a moment, nobody moved. My mother's lips parted slightly, her smile freezing mid-curve. Excuse me, she said. There must be some mistake. The manager shook his head. None, ma'am. Miss Carter is one of our private clients. Her designs are exclusive to the Laurent collection. The clerk's jaw dropped. A few customers nearby turned to look at me, their curiosity sharp as camera flashes. I looked at my mother, her confidence unraveling in slow motion. For years, she'd told everyone I'd thrown my life away chasing art. She'd laughed when I sold sketches online, said real success came from marrying it, not earning it. Now she stood in the very place she'd mocked me, surrounded by jewels I had designed. I followed the manager into the private room, heart pounding not from pride, but from something deeper, release. Inside, the table shimmered with pieces that had once lived only in my sketchbook, delicate curves, hand-cut stones, and the small engraved signature, AC. The manager smiled. They're exquisite. Laurent was right to call you a prodigy. For a second, I couldn't speak. My hands trembled as I touched the necklace I'd spent months perfecting. My mother appeared in the doorway, pale and silent. I met her eyes. You were right, Mom. I can't afford to buy these, I said softly, but I can design them. The silence that followed sparkled louder than every diamond in the room. The sound of heels clicking against marble followed me out of the boutique. My mother's voice trailed close behind, low, sharp, and furious. Ava, what was that stunt supposed to prove? I didn't answer right away. The automatic door slid open, and the Manhattan air rushed in, cool and alive. For the first time in years, I didn't feel small walking beside her. I felt seen. I turned to face her under the streetlight. It wasn't a stunt, Mom. That's my career. Her lips pressed into a hard line. Since when do you have a career? She snapped. You're telling me those jewels, those ridiculous prices, are because of you? Yes, I said. Every sketch, every design, every sleepless night you called a waste of time. Her face reddened, and I could see it, the battle between pride and disbelief. You should have told me. I laughed, softly but bitterly. You wouldn't have listened. You never do unless there's a price tag attached. She opened her mouth, but I kept talking. Years of silence finally broke free. Do you know how many times I almost quit? How many days I worked double shifts at the diner just to pay for materials? And when I called you, hoping you'd say something like, I'm proud of you, you said. That you were being unrealistic, she interrupted, her tone brittle. Exactly. My voice trembled, but I didn't hide it. You never believed in me until it benefited you. Her expression faltered for just a second. Guilt, maybe. But she looked away, hiding it behind that same old mask. Ava, I wanted you to be secure. To have stability. No, I said, stepping closer. You wanted me to live your version of stability. Marry rich, stay silent, smile at parties. You never cared what actually made me happy. The traffic light turned green, painting her face in a strange hue, half envy, half realization. You sound just like your father, she muttered, always blaming someone else. That name was a punch to the chest. Dad believed in me, I said quietly. He supported my art until the day he died. You erased that part of him because it didn't fit your perfect picture. Her jaw tightened. She didn't respond. For once, words failed her. I took a slow breath and started walking toward the curb. You know, Mom, for years, I thought success would make you love me differently. But it won't. And that's okay now. She followed, her heels clicking faster. Ava, wait. Don't walk away like this. I'm not walking away, I said, turning back to her. I'm walking forward. Her face fell. Maybe for the first time, she saw me not as her daughter, but as a woman who no longer needed her permission to shine. Before I got into my car, she called after me one last time. Ava, everyone was staring at me in there. You humiliated me. I paused at the door, hand on the handle, and met her eyes. Now you know what it feels like. The city swallowed her silence. As I drove off, tears blurred the skyline. Not of sadness, but release. The weight I'd carried for years finally lifted, piece by piece, like broken glass swept from a floor. In the rearview mirror, the jewelry store lights glowed behind me, sparkling like a reminder. Sometimes, the most beautiful revenge isn't revenge at all. It's rising where they said you couldn't. And I wasn't done rising yet. 2 months later, I stood in front of a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the Paris skyline, my reflection caught between sunrise and city lights. The Eiffel Tower glimmered faintly in the distance, and behind me, the showroom buzzed with excitement. It still felt unreal. My debut collection, Lumiere by Ava Carter, was about to launch at Lauren's annual fashion gala. My sketches, once mocked as scribbles, were now displayed under glass, surrounded by reporters, stylists, and collectors from across Europe. But what none of them knew was that behind every diamond, there was a memory of struggle. As I adjusted the clasp of a necklace, one I designed after my father's death, I heard my assistant, Mia, rush in with wide eyes. Ava, you won't believe who just RSVP'd late to the gala. I smiled faintly. Let me guess, another critic? She shook her head, holding out a card. Linda Carter. Your mother. My heart stopped for half a beat. What? She called the main office, Mia said cautiously. Said she's flying in tonight. Apparently, she told the staff she's your manager. I let out a slow breath, my pulse tightening. I shouldn't have been surprised. For someone who spent years downplaying my success, my mother had an uncanny ability to show up the moment it shone too bright to ignore. That evening, the gala hall glimmered like a dream. Cameras flashed. The air was heavy with perfume and money. And yet, I felt grounded, not like the girl who used to shrink beside her mother, but like the woman who had finally built something that couldn't be taken away. Then she appeared. Linda Carter entered the room draped in a gown that screamed old money, emerald silk, diamond earrings that didn't quite match her expression. Her eyes scanned the crowd until they found me. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she smiled that polished smile I'd grown up dreading. "Ava," she said, reaching out, "you look stunning. The papers are calling you the next big thing in luxury design. I suppose I should start saying, I always knew you would make it." I looked at her hand, then at her. "Funny," I said calmly. "You once said my designs would end up at flea markets." Her smile didn't waver, but her eyes did. "I was wrong," she said quickly, lowering her tone. "We all make mistakes. But tonight isn't the time for grudges. Everyone here knows we're family. Let's just act like it." Her words hit harder than she realized. Act like it. That had been her mantra my whole life. Act happy, act perfect, act successful. Never be real. I straightened. "I don't need to act anymore, Mom." Before she could respond, the announcer's voice echoed through the hall. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ava Carter, designer of this year's exclusive Lumiere collection." Applause erupted. Flashbulbs exploded. My name filled the room, louder than her judgment ever had. I walked up to the stage, heart pounding in rhythm with the applause. From up there, I saw her, standing still, tears glimmering just under the surface of her pride. When I spoke, I didn't look away. This collection is dedicated to anyone who was ever told they weren't enough. Sometimes, the people closest to us can't see our light until it blinds them. Gasps, then silence. Cameras zoomed in, and my mother lowered her gaze. For the first time, I saw understanding, not defeat but recognition. The applause that followed wasn't just for the jewels. It was for survival. And I had never sparkled brighter. When the applause finally faded, I stepped off the stage and let the lights dim behind me. My hands were trembling, not from nerves, but from something heavier, something real. It wasn't pride. It was freedom. The night had gone perfectly. The collection sold out within minutes. Critics called it emotion wrapped in crystal, and Laurent himself had toasted me with a glass of champagne, calling me the future of modern elegance. Yet as the cameras turned away, I noticed her, my mother, standing near the far edge of the ballroom, away from the crowd, her expression unreadable. The same woman who once told a stranger I'd never amount to anything now looked lost in a room celebrating my success. Mia approached, grinning ear to ear. "Ava, you did it. Lawrence's team already wants a second collection." "That's incredible," I said, smiling faintly. "Can you excuse me for a minute?" She nodded, and I crossed the marble floor slowly, every step echoing louder than the music. My mother turned when she saw me coming. For the first time in my life, she didn't look ready to argue. Her voice was soft, almost fragile. "You were amazing up there." "Thank you," I said quietly. She hesitated. I shouldn't have said those things at the store. Or before that. I was harsh. I thought I was protecting you. I folded my arms, not in anger, but to keep from shaking.
No, Mom.
You were protecting yourself. From being embarrassed by a daughter who didn't fit your idea of success. Her eyes glistened. "Maybe you're right. I was scared. Your father believed in you, but I couldn't see what he saw. I just didn't want to lose control of everything after he passed." "You lost control the moment you tried to cage what wasn't yours," I replied softly. "You didn't lose me because I failed, Mom. You lost me because I stopped needing your approval." The words hung between us like smoke, slow, unrelenting, impossible to avoid. She swallowed hard. I don't know how to fix this. You don't have to, I said. Just don't tear me down anymore. Silence. Then, in a whisper almost too quiet to hear, she said, I'm proud of you. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't an apology worthy of years of hurt. But it was the first time she'd ever said it. And part of me, the part that still remembered sitting on the floor sketching by lamplight, finally exhaled. I smiled faintly. That's all I ever wanted to hear. For a while, we just stood there. No more pretending. No more acting. Just two women, one learning how to let go, the other learning how to love from a distance. The gala slowly wound down, guests filtering out into the Paris night. I slipped onto the balcony overlooking the Seine, the city lights glittering like the diamonds that had changed everything. Mia joined me, holding 2 glasses of champagne. To your first collection, she said, clinking mine. I smiled. And to the last time I ever let anyone make me feel small. She laughed softly. That's the Ava I know. I looked out at the city, the river shimmering below, the hum of music fading in the distance, and for the first time, I didn't feel the ache to prove anything. I'd already done it. When I returned home to New York a week later, there was a letter waiting for me. No return address, just my name in elegant handwriting. I opened it carefully. Inside was a simple card. For every diamond you create, remember, you're the rarest one of all. Love, Mom. A single tear rolled down my cheek. Maybe she was changing. Maybe not. But it didn't matter. I'd already learned the most valuable lesson, that some people will never see your worth until the world does first. That night, I locked my studio, dimmed the lights, and stared at the sketches pinned across the wall. Each one was a piece of my past. Rejection, struggle, resilience, turned into beauty. I whispered to myself, you did it, Ava. You did it without them. And somewhere deep inside, it finally felt true. Outside, New York glittered like Paris had, not because of the lights, but because I could finally see my own reflection in them. Not as someone's daughter. Not as someone's disappointment. Just me. A designer. A survivor. A woman who learned that sometimes the best revenge is simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. As I walked to the window, the moon caught the edge of one of my newest designs, a ring shaped like a teardrop of light. I slipped it on, smiled, and whispered, this one's for me. The world outside sparkled back. And for once, the silence didn't hurt. It glowed.